Welcome once again to another edition of Shelf Life Book Reviews Online. As always, I thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. Hopefully you will find this one informative, and when you go to your local bookstore, you will seek out the book that I'm about to review for you. And the book this time out is The Greatest Comeback: How Team Canada Fought Back, Took the Summit Series, and Reinvented Hockey by John U. Bacon. And this is published by Collins, and it retails for $34.99. Most people who grew up in the 70s will remember the Summit Series, where Team Canada played Russia's national team. It was an 8-game series, and it really was something that captivated a lot of Canadians and other hockey fans around the world. In the book, the author says there are certain moments throughout history that people remember where they were when a significant event happened, like when John Kennedy was shot, when they landed on the moon. And I think people would remember where they were when Paul Henderson scored that magical goal with 34 seconds left in Game 8, the deciding game of the series. Personally, I had started grade 13. And I remember a lot of us were in the school library watching the game on this very small TV. And of course, when Paul Henderson scored, it just erupted. I'm sure they could have heard the cheering outside the high school that I attended. So it really was a defining moment in Canadian hockey. Now, the author looks at the series, how the players were chosen, and there were several players that were chosen, and some did not want to stay with the team, like Vic Hadfield. He didn't think he was being played enough, so he asked to be released, and so they let him go. But there were a lot of significant players who were part of Team Canada. There were the Mahovlich brothers, Frank and Peter. There was Yvon Cournoyer, Bobby Clark, Ron Ellis, and the goaltenders, Ken Dryden and Tony Esposito, were also part of the team as well too. So in fact, half of the players who were on that classic team went on to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So they really got the best players under the circumstances because they had to have a good team, because Russia's team was supposed to be one of the most elite teams in the world. And it turned into a most interesting series where the first 4 games, of course, were played in Canada and the last 4 in Russia. And the author talks about how things were in Russia, especially with the Swedish referees and other from foreign countries who refereed, that they really heavily favored the Russian players, and they gave penalties to the Canadians on a whim. If they looked at them the wrong way, they got a penalty. If they skated close to one of the Russian players and didn't even touch him, it was still an interference call. So basically, the odds seemed almost stacked against the Canadian team, but they persevered. They fought back. A lot of people went over to Russia. A lot of the wives of the players went there, and I think it said there were 3,000 Canadians took the flight to Russia to watch the 4 games there. And toward the final games, they were saying, the author says, that there were Russian soldiers stationed around the arena with guns in their hands. It was almost like they were trying to intimidate the Canadian team, making the Canadians think, well, if you lose, we're going to shoot you, or if you win, we're going to shoot you. And it became a rather almost unnerving thing. But the Canadians still persevered. They fought back. They were down several times in that Game 8. And it seemed like they were almost headed for a tie until, like we said, Paul Henderson's amazing, game-changing, game-winning goal that brought a country to its feet and the Russian team to its knees. So John Bacon really has researched this book well. There's almost 400 pages in the book, and a lot of it is public knowledge. But he also goes into events behind the scenes that a lot of us never heard about before. And that's what makes the book interesting. It's very riveting reading, even though we know the outcome of the game, of course. He still manages to get our interest and keep it there. So The Greatest Comeback is really a great book. If you're a hockey fan, if you didn't grow up during the Summit series or weren't around, you will find it truly fascinating reading. And if you did, it brings back memories and helps you relive that classic 8-game series. So that's the book I wanted to draw to your attention this time out. Hopefully, you will seek it out at your local bookstore, and you will let me know if you agree with my review. So until we meet again, and we will very soon with another book of note, keep reading. Keep looking at your local bookstore, and keep in touch, and stay safe and stay sane. And we'll get together again real soon. Thanks again, and bye for now.